Alrighty. Well, I'm just out in the paddock here, getting myself a log for tonight. Want to talk a bit about languages and an idea that somebody, I don't know if they've actually tried it or they're trying it or what, but it sounds a little bit from the mind of a monolinguist, I suppose we could call it, someone who only speaks one language. Yeah, there's something my mum told me. I don't know if they've actually tried it in practice at any place, but they're going to be sort of fairly friggin' disappointed if they do. So to put it in context here a little bit, I'm not claiming to be a absolute ripper with languages, but where I work, all the people there speak, oh my gosh, Sinhalese, which is, amongst all their workmates, Sinhalese, which is basically the main native language, especially pre-tea plantation language of Sri Lanka, the original language of Sri Lanka, and Arabic, and of course English, but also Italian, Afrikaner, quite possibly Swahili, French, I said Italian already, oh yes, Vietnamese, bits and pieces of Vietnamese with one workmate. Another workmate speaks, I think it might be Mandarin, but there's also Laos, Cambodia, a lot of their different languages. Then if you include me, well, there's bits of Spanish, Melanesian Pidgin English, which is not really exactly like normal English at all. That may be an understatement. It's very minced up. And more recently, bits of Arabic. But I'm speaking. But, we've got a Muslim there who speaks fluent Arabic anyway. Now, as for me, myself, let's get that kettle. Set you down on the tissue box here for a bit. As for me, myself, individual words. Well, I speak individual words, just bits and pieces. Holy smoke. Croatian/Serb, Russian, Greek, Italian, German, and a number of others. I'm fairly fluent in Melanesian Pidgin English and completely fluent in English, as is obviously the case. French, I started learning that a fair while ago, but sort of, yeah, they were not very good CDs in hindsight, and yeah, but bits and pieces of French, some days I'll be there, maybe once a month I'll have all the French just come flooding back, and I can remember quite a bit of it, but it was all only ever what I call survival French, just basic stuff, asking for directions, asking for this, that, you, me, who, her, blah, blah, just basic stuff. And as for Spanish, it was not much different, as you guys probably may or may not remember. It took me about 3 weeks to start to get a reasonable-ish grasp of Spanish, just a bit of survival stuff. To be honest, because I didn't the French I, sort of learnt over a longer period, but slower, and I've retained more of that than I have the Spanish, even though the Spanish was only a couple of years ago. Melanesian Pidgin English is obviously fairly recent. I'm really, the Solomon's version Solomon Islands version, sometimes known as Neo-Solomonic, is very heavily accented, and it is hard in general. It's very hard in general just from sheer accent. And it really varies from person to person and also province to province. A lot of provinces they speak terribly slurred, and it's just hard. And yet, essentially the exact same thing. There's, one or two words that are said slightly longer. There's literally two words that are said a couple of letters longer. In Bislama, which is the Vanuatu version. And Vanuatu, they speak as clear, and it's as smooth as silk. Whereas in the Solomon Islands, it's almost person to person if you can understand it or not. And they've got a terrible habit of just slurring all their words together, which I realise is part of the habit of the Australian accent too, is slurring two words together. And more recently, only in the last several days, I'm starting to learn Arabic. And, there's... yeah, I'm moving ahead even faster than I did with Spanish. I am sort of surprised that I can make basic statements and I'm reading bits, but watching videos, but within a few days more, I'll probably be able to start forming basic questions as well as making basic statements, which I can already do. And that could be a mousse. I'm a big banana. There you go. Generally speaking, I don't like the idea of these, Oh yes, I also forgot I know individual words in Tongan and Samoan as well. Yeah. But I don't really like the idea of, loading up everyone. Oh, how do you say something? How do you say something? And you say it to them. Yeah, by the end of the day, they lost the pronunciation, and then they go walking around to everyone saying, "Moi is me in French. Moi, moi." No, it's moi. It's avec moi. It's moi, not moi. It's just a stupid idea to give someone one word and they go around and And I used to wonder why people sort of don't necessarily just start speaking another language in front of you, and it's, in my experience, you've almost got to drop your brain into gear with it, and, if you speak a bit to them, then they want to know some more, and all they do is just get a whole heap of shit, which is just mispronounced by the end of the day, and more or less just becomes misinformation that they spread onto other people. And I understand now why people don't like to really talk other languages, although I've had, a couple of people, there used to be a Turkish bloke I work with, and he used to just start singing Turkish songs, and then he'd turn to me and go, "You know this one? Nah, why not?" But anyway, this idea that my mother come out with, that I don't know if an existing church is trying it or going to try it, and some of you people know more than others of you people, and wait a minute, too many beans, and might know a bit more about experiences I've had versus others, but if it's come from the mind of a certain person, I'd just brush it off straight away. But regardless, I'm going to brush it off because it's a horse shit idea. Regardless of whose mind it's come from, and it's the idea of bringing in refugees to a church by giving them free Bible lessons, by giving them free English lessons. Now, how are they going to do this? Well, the idea is that what we're going to do is we're going to teach them English from children's Bible storybooks. Those little ones that are all the little books that you might have seen in Sunday school and this and that, and they tell all stories of Jesus went here one day and he done this and he saw that person and boom, 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 and and you're sort of wondering if there's a moral to the story or not, and at the end of it all you sort of think, okay, so he went here and he said this and he said that, and there might be a moral, and on occasion sometimes there isn't, and it's like, oh, this isn't a moral, and you're like, great, we learned about what some guy done many years ago, but yeah, like, what was the point of telling us all this? You know, I think the bizarre idea is to actually write free English lessons in English and hang it on a sign on the gate or something. I don't know if this is the church my parents go to, a different church, a church that's already doing it, a church that's considering doing it, or what. But I tell you, your first fail, your first time you get the gun and shoot yourself in the foot is when you write free English lessons in English. Only an English speaker thinking from the perspective of a person who only has one language in their mind could come out with that sort of an idea, because it's a catch-22. How are they going to read the word free English lessons if they can't understand English to begin with? It's a bit of a boom, shoot yourself in the foot. But there's a lot more to languages than that. And the fact that there's so much more to languages is the part that really shoots English-only speakers in the foot. And essentially, it is the idea that every other language has words that are a direct translation. No. Even Pidgin English, they're a little bit different. You know, there's the phrase Tomas. It's not a phrase, it's actually a word, Tomas. But it's actually two words, because it derives from too much. But they don't use it to say, oh, you've filled the cart up with, you know, coconuts too much, or you've put too much water in my water tank. They use it in place of very. So, me babalina Tomas. Or it'd probably be, me Tomas babalina. I'm very pregnant. Yeah, but what they actually say is me, I, you know, of course, me means I. They actually write it M-I. Too much, but they really use it as very. Babalina is pregnant. See, it's Pidgin English, but it doesn't always necessarily have English words in there. And this is one of those things, there's a lot of words where it's not a direct translation, you know, and you got ones that are close enough, near enough, but not all the time are they going to be absolute word-for-word translation where you can just say, right, this word directly fits that, because it's not always the case. And there's an absolute truck full of words where it might technically be correct, but we would never use that word in English. But due to 100+ years of wandering off in its own direction, Melanesian Pidgin English uses words that might technically be right, but they really don't sound like normal English. It's just, if you were to get a dictionary definition of all of these words, you know, Tomas meaning too much, well, you know, I'm too much pregnant. Well, you could say, well, that means she's very pregnant, but the thing is, it's not the word you'd use. And although I can't think of a great truck full of them right now, there is damn near a great truck full that, you know, it just, they really don't sort of match up, you know, and they'll often say, what if I go down to such and such, do you want to come? Well, they won't say what if, they always say suppose, me go to market. You fella come too? Suppose I go to the market, shall you guys come too? You know, this is a sort of thing. You'd say, well, if I'm going to the market, do you guys want to come too? Well, they use the word, suppose I go place prefix market, shall you guys come with me, sort of thing. Shall you guys come too? You know, it sort of, it isn't the way we'd word it, but 100 years of going off in their own direction and an extremely limited vocabulary, everything sort of goes differently. The other thing is that the grammar, they always just assume, oh, what's this word mean? I can just put that in place, I can just, but no, the grammar's all over the place. Some of these languages, you know, there's extensive use of the word belong because they don't have any other substitute for it, but they've ripped out most of the other things that you may ever use in place and just use the word belong. But then in Vanuatu it's gone to blong, and then in Solomon Islands it's gone to blo. And, you know, and then you say, Hiram talking blonko bloyu. Hiram, the talking belonging to the uncle that belongs to you. So that's what it, you know, that's what it sort of translates out into. But it sounds like frickin' scrambled eggs. It actually means listen to your uncle. You know, but holy smoke, it was very minced up. So, you know, a lot of things just don't fit straight away and they don't fit first time. And, you know, that's only Melanesian Pidgin English. Wait till you start going with all these bizarre words and stuff, but then the order's completely different. And on top of that, on top of the grammar being changed up, parts of Arabic that I've learned so far are similar enough in some parts of grammar, but it might be the same or similar grammar to make a statement. You know, I am a big banana, for instance. Anakabira moose. I still can't say banana quite properly. I think it's muse. But anyway, it's one of these things that while statements may have the same grammar, then questions won't have the same grammar. But there's something else I want to show you on my phone right now, and there's a whole nother class of words that aren't really in existence in English that are in Arabic. So let's just turn things around here and far away.
Al-Masdar literally means the source in Arabic, as in the source of a verb. Masadir is the plural, and masadir are a class of words that we don't really have an exact equivalent for in English. Sometimes people refer to them as verbal nouns, which is about as accurate a translation as we're going to get. But it sounds a bit silly, so it's a good idea to just get into the habit of referring to a masdar as a masdar. Masdars are words that express the abstract idea of an action.
That's more or less enough there. Verb nouns, or whatever he said. Like, there's not such a thing, you know, in English, but there is in Arabic. So how are you going to go then with stuff like that? You know, you've got people who have gone from that. They're going to try to transfer to English, and what are you going to use? Well, grammar's important. You know, I can sit here and I've got, like on my phone, I'll just flick back into some of my stuff here. "94 minutes, that's right. Hour and 33 minutes worth of Arabic. And that, you know, if we skip through this a bit, you know, short, that's how you write it, said as kasir. You know, and some of these are it's simple words, so it's fairly good translations, but, you know, there's some things where, like, for instance, ma and ma'a. And that's another point I've missed there, glottal stops. I'll get to all that in a second. But ma and ma'a can mean used in a word as with, as the word with. It can be used as no. It can be used as, I think it's why. It's either where, why, who, how, what. One of those. You use ma. You also use it for no. You also use it for the word with. And there's another blasted word too that it's used for, which is, you know, like an actual thing. It's like, I think it's a kind of food or some blasted thing or a physical thing, you know. They use ma. And then you got strange things like, I think it's maharb or something like that, bread. But it also means life. Life means bread, bread means life. It's the exact same word, you know. And here I am saying, you know, ma and ma'a, two different words, but if you're an English speaker, you just go ma. But it's ma and ma'a, and they translate to a total of 4 different words. And you think, holy smoke, like, you've got to hang on to your context and all that. And that brings us to glottal stops. Now, what you just heard me go when I said ma or ma'a, that's a glottal stop. Samoan and Tongan and, what do you know, Arabic are full of glottal stops. It's Glottal space STOP. You probably should Google it, but sometimes when the British go water bottle instead of water bottle, you know, the A and the O there have got a glottal stop. It's like the in your throat sort of thing. That's a glottal stop. You can Google it if you want. Then you got interesting things like Chinese and Vietnamese, which are tonal languages, where it's all different. The tone going up and down, that makes one word change to a completely different word. Well, it's one letter changed to a completely different letter, which can change the whole meaning of words altogether just by the pitch that you're letting them out at. That's for real. That's, you know, and that's what 1.8 billion is speaking in China right now, you know, plus a whole bunch of Chinese spread all over the world in various other countries like Taiwan, Singapore, and every other Chinatown everywhere. Yeah, this is, you know, this is some of the stuff that you sort of come across, you know. And what was the other point I was going to make? It's all that's right. What's the best thing you can learn in a language? Basic words and then basic grammar structure. Words are bloody hopeless unless you can string them together. You need to be able to string them together. And then on top of that, not only do you need simple words and need to be able to string them together, but you need practical stuff. What price is this? Where is the toilet? You know, different things like that. Basic things like that. Stuff that you can use in the real world on an everyday basis. But what part of, and Jesus said, ye are fishers of men, or Jesus said, repent of your sins, or John, you know, went up the mountain and prayed to God, or what part of these are they going to use in everyday real life? Really? Like getting them to memorize some story and say the words of some story, They're going to be sitting there going, great, so we know how to say John the Baptist went up the mountain and prayed to God. How is that going to help me next time I'm at the shops? You know, and you think you're going to convert people. Well, let me tell you, some people, especially those who have lived under hardship, especially those in societies where honesty hasn't been a big thing, which tends to be the same societies that have war in them, which tend to be where refugees come from, you know, they're just going to come along to learn whatever they need to learn, and if they've learned anything, or they are learning, and things are going ahead, and things are going good, and they are actually learning stuff and making progress, they'll stay until they don't really need your help anymore. And then what's the point of hanging around listening to more stuff? At what point are you going to slowly shoo them into a church service, out of an English class into a church service? Once they realise that the whole game was just to get them into the church service, they're going to hang around? Or they're going to just use your English classes as they need to use them, and once you've taught them, well, seriously speaking, like, they're not using you up, but what is their reason to hang around? Why would they keep hanging around? Why would they bother? They got better things to do, don't they? You know, look after the kids, go shopping, do the garden, do whatever. You know. It's all a great idea, you know. It's almost like thinking you're gonna hand out fucking, you know, you're gonna hand out free makeup, and that's gonna bag yourself a girlfriend who's like in her early 20s or something. It's bullshit. She'll get the free makeup, she'll take the free makeup. If she needs more, she'll come back, but she's definitely not going on a date with you. You know, it's a real stupid sort of a idea that you're going to somehow usher them out of an English service into a church service and have them praying and get them baptized. You know, it's a long shot. You might do it for 3 in 100, but other than that, holy smoke. But anyway, that's just my view on languages, coming from someone who's sort of got a little bit of a workable, or did have workable knowledge of languages other than straight English, and is fairly fluent, at least in Melanesian Pidgin English.